Target secured!
Get away from me!
Are you hurt? Did they touch you?
Chapter 7. Crimson Protection. And the thunderstorm that had battered the city returned with renewed fury, slamming heavy gusts of rain against the reinforced glass. Bulletproof windows of the eastern wing of Obsidian Manor. Elena sat near a crackling fireplace in the private sitting room, wrapped in a plush navy velvet robe. A steaming cup of chamomile tea sat untouched on the mahogany side table beside her. Her pale fingers rested lightly against her lap, trembling slightly as she stared into the dancing flames every time she closed her eyes. She didn't see the warmth of the fire. She saw Leo's disgusted face. She heard his mother calling her trash. Tomorrow, you will stand at the right hand of the devil himself. Dominic's words echoed in her mind, offering a strange, dangerous comfort. But before tomorrow could arrive, the shadows of the night had other plans. A sound echoed through the hallway, sharp, loud, and distinctly different from the thunder outside. It was followed immediately by the dull thud of a heavy body hitting the floor. Elena gasped, freezing in her chair. Her heart slammed violently against her ribs like a trapped bird. What was that? She whispered to the empty room before she could stand. The heavy oak doors of the sitting room burst open with violent force. Two men dressed in tactical black gear, their faces hidden behind dark balaclavas, stormed into the room. They carried silent, suppressed submachine guns, their eyes cold and lethal. They weren't Dominic's guards. Target secured? The girl is here! One of the men barked into a shoulder-combs device, his voice raspy and harsh. Get her! The second man yelled, lunging forward with an iron grip reaching directly for Elena's throat. No! Get away from me! Elena shrieked in horror. Panic seized her limbs. She grabbed the heavy stoneware teapot from the table and hurled it with all her strength at the approaching assassin. Clang! The hot liquid splashed across the man's chest, causing him to grunt in pain and stumble back for a fraction of a second. Elena scrambled backward over the arm of the sofa, her knees buckling beneath her, her lungs screaming for air as she collapsed onto the floor. Useless bitch! The leader snarled, stepping around the sofa and raising the barrel of his silenced weapon straight at her head. Elena squeezed her eyes shut, pulling her arms over her face, tears of absolute terror finally breaking free and running hot down her cheeks. Is this how it ends? She thought wildly. Before I even get my revenge, boom. A deafening roar shattered the air, not the quiet theft of a suppressed weapon, but the thunderous blast of a high-caliber hand cannon. The assassin standing above Elena gasped, his body jolting violently as a crimson flower erupted through the front of his tactical vest. He collapsed forward like a felled tree, crashing to the floor inches from her bare feet, blood pooling rapidly onto the cream carpet. Elena! Cover your ears. A voice boomed through the room, a deep, terrifying roar filled with pure, unadulterated fury that shook the very foundations of the estate. Dominic. Rossi burst through the shattered doorway like an enraged god of war. He wore no suit jacket, only his white dress shirt, now splattered with dark red droplets. In his right hand, he held a customized matte black Desert Eagle, white smoke curling lazily from the barrel. His striking hazel green eyes were no longer calm. They burned with a chaotic, lethal fire that promised absolute annihilation. The second assassin spun around, raising his submachine gun. Die, Rossi. Boom, boom. Dominic fired twice without a moment of hesitation. The heavy rounds tore through the assassin's chest, lifting the man off his feet and hurling his lifeless body against the marble fireplace before he crumpled in a bloody heap. Silence fell over the room, heavy, suffocating and thick with the metallic stench of fresh blood and burning gunpowder. Elena sat frozen in the corner, her body shaking so violently her teeth chattered. Her vision was blurred with tears, her breath coming in ragged, suffocating gasps. She clutched her knees to her chest, surrounded by broken porcelain, smoke, and corpses. Dominic didn't even look at the dead men. He dropped his weapon onto the sofa and dropped to his knees right in front of her. "Elena!" he called out. His voice was no longer a roar, but a low, urgent murmur laced with a rare, desperate edge. Don't hurt me!" Elena whimpered, burying her face in her hands, completely overwhelmed by the gore and violence. "Look at me, little bird. Look at me," Dominic commanded softly, reaching out with his broad hands. His large, warm fingers gently cupped her pale, tear-stained face, lifting her head. His touch was firm, grounding, and surprisingly gentle despite the blood staining his cuffs. His intense hazel eyes searched her face, scanning every inch of her skin for any sign of injury. "Are you hit? Did they touch you?" Dominic demanded, his baritone trembling with a dark, volatile mix of rage and worry. "Answer me, Elena." No. Elena sobbed, her icy, trembling fingers reaching up instinctually to clasp around his wrists, clinging to him as if he were her only anchor in a sea of madness. I'm not shot. But the blood." Dominic let out a long, shuddering breath, a wave of profound relief washing across his harsh, sculpted features. Good girl," he purred against her forehead, pulling her fragile body straight into his broad, muscular chest. Elena didn't pull away. She buried her face into the crook of his neck, her small hands clutching tightly to his blood-stained shirt. The scent of copper mixed with his signature Kelowna cedar wood, dark tobacco, and rain wrapped around her, shielding her from the horrors of the room. Who were they?" Elena wept against his skin, her voice muffled by his chest. "Vance's rivals," Dominic growled, his arms wrapping around her waist like bands of solid iron, holding her so securely she felt entirely weightless. "They thought targeting my home would show weakness. They thought they could use you against me." He pulled back slightly, his leather-clad thumb gently wiping away the tears streaming down her pale cheeks. His gaze turned fiercely possessive, his eyes blazing with a dark promise that sent a thrill through her terrified heart. "They made a fatal mistake," Dominic whispered, his voice dropping into a lethal, gravelly purr against her cheek. "No one touches what belongs to Dominic Rossi. No one." Footsteps rushed into the hallway as Dominic's tactical security team finally secured the perimeter, led by his top lieutenant. "Don't, Rossi. The perimeter is clear. The remaining intruders are dead." Dominic didn't even turn his head. "Clean this mess up," he commanded coldly. "Burn the bodies. Erase every trace." "Yes, boss." Dominic gathered Elena into his arms, lifting her off the blood-stained floor with effortless power. Elena instinctively wrapped her arms around his neck, resting her head against his shoulder as he carried her out of the ruined sitting room and down the quiet, secure hallway toward his private master suite. As he walked, Elena looked at his jawline, sharp, unyielding, and spattered with the blood of men who had tried to hurt her for 3 years. She had relied on Leo Vance, a man who had stood by silently while his mother humiliated her and who had thrown her out into the cold rain to protect his precious reputation. And now, here was a mana monster. A Doan who had walked through gunfire and painted the walls red just to keep her safe. The fear inside Elena's chest slowly transformed into something far deeper, far darker and dangerously intoxicating. Dominic pushed open the double doors of his master bedroom, setting her down gently onto the massive, velvet-draped bed. He knelt before her once more, unlaced her wet slippers, and wrapped a warm cashmere blanket around her shivering shoulders. "You are safe now, Elena," Dominic said, looking up into her eyes, his thumb resting gently over her fast, fluttering pulse at her throat. "Nothing in this world will ever harm you again while I breathe." Elena looked down at his bloodied hands, then met his lethal, glowing hazel eyes. She reached out with a pale, trembling hand, her fingers gently touching his cheek, wiping away a stray speck of dust. "I know," Elena whispered, her voice no longer shaking, "because you are my protector now." A slow, dark smirk spread across Dominic's face, his eyes flaring with absolute triumph. "Tomorrow, my queen," Dominic purred, leaning up to press a soft, possessive kiss against her forehead. "We make them all bleed." That's the end of this chapter. The next chapter is coming very soon. Smash that subscribe button right now and drop a comment below so you won't miss the thrilling next plot twist. See you in the next chapter.